Hey crew, it's Pitt and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the Theatrum, Chemicum, Britannicum. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box down below, along with the original source material, and the link from my book where I teach you to do magic and to live responsibly, and the links to get in contact with me directly so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. In addition to that, if you find value in it, I ask you to do all of the good things down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow. Throw me a comment whether you agree or disagree with anything that is said. Put it in the box down below, and if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you truly find value in it, consider hitting the membership button, giving us a super thanks, or picking up a copy of the book. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of the Theatrum, Chemicum, Britannicum with the 10th gate of Exaltation. We will probably get through all the rest of the gates today. There are 12 gates total. We are on number 10. Proceed we now to the chapter of Exaltation, of which thou must have knowledge pure. Full little it is different from sublimation, if thou conceive him right, I thee in short. Here too, accordeth the Holy Scripture, Christ saying thus, If I exalted be, then I shall draw all things unto me. Our medicine, if we exalt right so, heat shall thereby be nobilizate. That must be done in manners too, for time the parts be disproportionate, which must be crucified and examinate, and then contumulate both man and wife, and after revived by the spirits of life. And we're going to pause. Right, once again, we are going to pull up the book for reference because this is once again talking about exactly what I would expect it to. When we did sublimation, we discovered that that was the process of balancing your vices. This appears to be exaltation, appears to be balancing the virtues. Right, this is the other half of that process. We talked about it in sublimation. This is telling you that this is the other side of that, right? You are coming down on our medicine if we exalt, right, at the top. Heat shall thereby be nobilized. That must be done in manners too. There is the virtues and the vices that have to be balanced. For time the parts be disproportionate. Until you balance them, they are disproportionate. But once you balance them, they are no longer disproportionate. Which must be crucified and examined. Okay. Right, when there's not a whole lot of reason to call it crucifixion, right? There is the cross, there is the quaternary, but it has nothing to do with the blood sacrifice. Just so that we are abundantly clear, right? He had to couch his language, I don't. And so this is exactly what I would expect. Even the contumulate both man and wife, right? There is the dark feminine powers that you use to balance your vices, and then there is the light masculine power that you use to balance your virtues. Man and wife, sun and moon, gold and silver, void and point, however you want to look at it, positive and negative, all of them are the exact same thing. And so, once again, I am finding exactly what I would expect to find from someone who knew what they were talking about, right? There have been several other studies where people did not know what they were talking about. So far in this one, both of the people do. I mean, we haven't gotten to anybody else yet. I mean, we still haven't made it to Dorn, which was what got us here to begin with. But so far, both Norton and Bridgerton, is that his name? I forgot his name, right? And we're doing the study, I forgot his name. But both of these so far seem to know what they're talking about. All right, back to the text. Then up to heaven they must exalted be, there to be in body and soul glorificate. For thou must bring them to such subtlety that they ascend together to be intronisate. Right, there is the third step of the process. We did not hit that quite yet today, right? You go up, you balance your vices. You come down, you balance the virtues. And then you bring the two forces together, stopping at each point to check the balance points, right? That would be bringing them to such subtlety. That would be balancing them together. That would be bringing them to heaven and exalting them in body and soul. There are two parts of the process. Body means that you are tied to the material side of things, and there is nothing wrong with that as long as you are not excluding the spiritual side of things. The same is true in reverse. It is nothing wrong with seeking the spiritual, but you are not supposed to deny the material. That is a big one for somebody. Somebody needs to hear that. You are not supposed to deny the world. You were supposed to live in accordance with your best interest, fully balanced in your virtues and vices here in the world, but not to deny the world. In clouds of clearness to angels consciate, then shall they draw, as thou shalt see, all other bodies to their own dignity. If thou therefore thy bodies will exalt, first with the spirits of life thou them augment. With the spirits of life, you say, balancing out those vices with the virtues, till time thy earth be well settled. Remember when we were at settling? By natural rectifying of each element, him up exalting into the firmament, then much more precious, that's got to be precious, shall they be than gold. Some of these spellings are a little bit wild, right? Then much more than precious shall they be than gold, because they of the quintessence do hold. Got a whole chapter devoted to the quintessence. Actually, it's not going to be in this book, right? The quintessence got a whole chapter in the alchemy book that is forthcoming. All right. For when the cold hath overcome the heat, then into water the air shall turn to be, and so two contraries together shall meet, till either with other right well agree. So into air thy water, as I tell thee, when heat of cold hath got domination, shall be converted by craft of circulation. All right, now, in spiritual alchemy, which is what we are dealing with, you have the elements, right? Air and water are two of them. Air is your soul. It is the signifier of Mercury, the thing that fills the vessel. You are the one that makes the decisions. That is air. Air is the decision maker. It is you bringing the water, which is the feminine side of the spirit. The spirit has two sides, feminine and masculine. And so the water is the feminine side of it. That is pulling up the water and balancing your vices. All right. When heat of cold hath got domination, right? The water is cold. You bring up the water, right, into the fire. The fire makes it warm. Heat and cold hath got, when heat of cold hath got domination. That is you burning away the vices. And of the fire, then air, have thou shalt. And fire is the opposite of air. It is the masculine side of the spirits, right? There's the air, which is your soul. There is the earth, which is your body. And then there is the spirit with the two sides, which allows you to live, right? It is the part that keeps you breathing. It is the part that helps you to aspire to be better. That is the spirit. You make the decisions as air, but you use both fire and water in the process. This is the other side of that. By losing, putrefying, and subliming, and fire thou hast of the earth material, thine elements by craft, thus deserving, most especially the earth well calcining, and when they be each on made pure, then do they hold all of the fifth nature. On this wise, therefore, make them to be circulate unto each other, exalting by and by. And in one glass do all this, surely sigillate, not with thy hands, but as I teach thee naturally, fire into water, then turn first heartily. For fire is in air, which is in water, excellent, extent, exitant, existent. And this conversion accorded to our intent. Again, this is exactly what I would expect to see, right? Fire into water, then turn fire into air, right? In which is in water, right? Which is in water existent, right? And so you are bringing the water of life up, you are bringing the fire of life down. Then furthermore, turn on thy wheel, that into earth thy air converted be, which will be done also right well. For air and water being in the earth, trust me. For air is in water being in the earth, trust me. Then water into fire, contrarios in their quality. Sun turn thou may, for water in earth is, which is in fire, conversion, true is this. Thy wheel is now nigh turned about into air turned earth, which is the proper nest. Of other elements there is no doubt, for earth in fire is, which in air taketh rest. This circulation now begin must in the west, then forth into the south till the exalted be, proceed duly as in the figure I have to write thee. Again, I'm going to point out a book that is not existent yet, right? When in the quaternary we have the illustration of this, right? The earth is positioned in the west, the air is positioned in the east, the fire is in the north, and the water is in the south. Right? That is for reasons. Right? Whenever you pull the energies up, you are pulling from the south, from the void. Whenever you pull the energies down, you are pulling from the north, from the light. It is grounded in the west, and you seek redemption, the soul, in the east. Right? That is somewhat arbitrary, but it is designations that work. This is the exact same designation. Right? Into air, turn earth. Right? That is turning around. That is going in a clockwise manner. Air starts here, and then it goes into earth, and then it goes around, right? It is going south into pulling up the waters. Then you pull up the waters, and you go into fire, and then you pull the fire down, and you pull the fire down. It is a process. It is a wheel. It does indeed fit pretty close to exactly. And again, it's not exactly as I would say it, but definitely well enough to recognize it. Sorry, this weather change got me thrown off. In which process thou may clearly see, from an extreme how to another they may not go, thou may not go, but by mean sith they in quality contrarios be, and reason will forsooth that heat be so as heat into cold with other contrarios mo. Without their meanies, as moist to heat and cold, examples sufficient for this have I told. Thus have I taught how for to make, of all the elements, a perfect circulation, and at thy figure example for to take, and how thou shalt make the foresaid exaltation. And of thy medicine in the elements true graduation, till heat be brought to a quaternity temperate, and then thou hast conquered the 10th gate. And so we're going to move on to the 11th gate of multiplication. And I don't have a whole lot to add, right? We've talked about it quite extensively going through all of these gates, and I really feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point, right? I'm ready to get into the next part of the study, although it is probably going to be more confirmation. These steps, as I have outlined, are not out of accord with what is being described here, right? The order may be a little bit different. The description of it may be a little bit different, but the process is pretty close to exactly the same. Of multiplication. Multiplication. Now I declare to proceed, which is by philosophers in this wise defined. Augmentation, it is of that elixir indeed, in goodness and quantity both, for white and red. Multiplication is therefore, as they have said, that thing that doth augment the medicine in each degree, in color and odor and virtue, and also in quantity. And why thou may thy medicine multiply infinitely, the cause forsooth is this. For it is fire, which turned will never die, dwelling with thee as fire doth in houses, of which one spark may make more fires, I wise, as musk and pigments and other species mow, in virtue multiplieth in our medicine, right so. So he is rich, the which fire hath less or more, because he may so greatly multiply, and right so rich is he which any part hath in store of our elixirs, which be augmentable infinitely, one way if thou dissolve our powders dry, and oft times of them make congelation of heat in goodness, thou maketh then augmentation. The second way, both in goodness and in quantity, heat multiplieth by iterate fermentation, as in that chapter I showed plainly unto thee by diverse manner of natural operation, and also in the chapter of our cibation, where thou may know how thou shalt multiply thy medicine with mercury infinitely. But, and thou both will loose and also ferment, both more in quantity and better will it be, and in such wise thou may that so augment, that in thy glass it will grow like a tree, the tree of Hermes named, seemly to see, of which one pepin 1,000 will multiply, if thou can make thy projection wittingly. And like as saffron, when it is pulverizate, by little and little of heat in liquor be tempered, and then with mickle more liquor dilate, tingeth more of liquor in quantity, then being whole in his own gross nature, so shall thou see that our elixirs, the more they may be made thin, the further in tincture so fastly will run. Keep in thy fire thou for both even and morrow, for house to house, that thou need not to run among thy neighbors thy fire to setch or borrow. The more thou keepest, the more good shall thou win, multiplying a more and more at the glass within, by feeding with mercury to thy livesend. So shall thou have more than thou needest to spend. This matter is plain, I will no more write now thereof, last reason thy guide, but never the bolder to sin therefore, to serve thy God the better at each tide. And wills that thou shalt in this life abide, be there in the mind, forget not, I thee pray, as thou shalt appear before thy God at Damas day. His own great gifts, therefore, and his treasure, dispose thou virtuously, helping the poor at need, that in this world to thee thou may procure mercy and grace with heavenly bliss to meet, and pray devoutly to God that he lead in at thy 11th gate as he can best. Soon after then thou shalt end thy conquest. There wasn't a whole lot to add there, right? That seems to be mostly about manifestation, right? But it wasn't explained in the terms that I would have used. For the most part, the understanding of manifestation, even though there is absolutely nothing intrinsically evil about it, would not have been looked upon even circuitously in the times, right? Even I'm creating my own life, my own destiny is definitely outside of the bounds of Christianity in almost every single sense of the religion. And so if he is talking about that, it is understandable that he would have couched that in more language. For me, The main thrust of that effort is going to be the next part, right? Projection. That is when you're literally putting out there what you want to create, right? It is the third part of the process. You go up with the vices, you come down with the virtues, then you meet them in the middle with the balance points. That meeting in the middle at the balance points, that is the point of manifestation. When you project outward and you are balanced between self and source, right, with purpose, whenever you are acting in that purpose and you are trying to create, that is projection, right? That is putting outside of yourself the goal, right? I am creating abundance. I am manifesting victory, whatever it happens to be. Now, I don't like to get into specifics, right? I need to manifest $1,000 by the end of the week, right? That is a bad way of going about it for a variety of reasons, which I outline in the book. It is much better to align yourself. I am manifesting abundance in the form that it would take. And if abundance can come in a bunch of forms. And if you need $1,000 by the end of the week and you are manifesting abundance, then that $1,000 is still going to come in. Right? Now, if you don't need it, if you only wanted it, it might be $500, right? Maybe that was what you needed. Sometimes we don't get the fullness of our desires, even in manifestation, for a variety of reasons. Most of the time it is due to misalignment, and there is a lot of alignment checks that you should do before you manifest. This guy has 11 gates before we get there, right? I have 3 processes, right? There is 8 weeks. 8 weeks, and then another 8 weeks. So 24 weeks before you start manifesting. All right. Of projection, the 12th gate. In projection, heed shall be provided if our practice be profitable, of which it behooveth me the secrets here to me. Therefore, if thy tincture be sure and not variable, but a little of thy medicine, thus shall thou prove with metal or with mercury, as Psyche will yet will cleave. Interesting, right? Mercury is the representative of your consciousness, your ability to choose. It is the representative of air. We hit all of that in the first gate. This is saying the psyche. Well, what is the psyche? The psyche is the part that makes the decisions. It is the ego manifest. It is you as a conscious individual making the choices. Now, this is intimating that metal, mercury, and psyche are the same thing. And that is what this is saying right here. And tinct in projection all fires to abide, and soon it will enter and spread him full wide. For many, but many for ignorance doth mark than they made. When on metals uncleansed projections they make. There's a lot of warnings in this book, especially now that the second edition is out. For because of corruption their tinctures must vade, which they would not away first from the body's take. Which after projection be brutal, blue and black, that thy tincture therefore may evermore last. Upon ferment thy medicine look first that thou cast. Right, we have gone through all of these procedures. There is the bringing up of the vices and the bringing down. If you have not done these steps, right, one of the warnings in here is if you're not willing to do the whole thing, don't begin. And another one is that if you have not taken the time to go through all of the steps, you will absolutely feel the reverberation. If you don't have the dedication to work through all 8 steps up, all 8 steps down, and then all 8 steps together before you manifest, what you are manifesting will absolutely reverberate upon you. You are manifesting whether you realize it or not. Every single day you are creating the reality in which you live. Your interpretation of events creates that reality. If things are going badly and you are concentrated upon the things going badly, more bad things will happen. Bad things happen regardless of your concentration, But if you are in the middle of a bad thing and you are concentrating on the lessons that you can learn from it, from the possible outcomes that may be better, then what you are manifesting into your life is that it may be better. If you are walking around every day saying it's going to be a shitty day, you are literally calling a shitty day into your life. If you are walking around, if not for bad luck, I wouldn't have any, you are manifesting bad luck. You are focusing upon the thing that you do not want, but that focus is what is making it happen in your life. If you can change that focus, there are steps to that, but if you can change that focus, you can change the result. It takes time, it takes dedication, but if you're this far into this study, you want it anyway. Then bridle will thy ferment, as any glass be, upon bodies cleansed, and made very pure. Cast thy bridle substance, brittle, gotta be brittle. Then brittle will thy ferment, as any glass be, upon bodies cleansed and made very pure. Cast thy brittle substance, and soon shalt thou see that they shall be curiously colored with tincture. I wonder if there's colors mentioned anywheres, which at all essays forever shall endure. But at the psalmies of the Psalter, example thou take, profitable projection perfectly to make. On fundamenta, cast first this psalm nunc diminutus upon verba mea, then cast fundamenta, blue. Blive, then verba mea upon diligam, conceive me with thy wits, and diligam on attend, if thou lust to thrive. Thus make thou projections 3, 4, or 5, till the tincture of thy medicine begin to decrease. Then it is time of projection to cease. Very interesting. One of the ways that I describe the manifestation process is as though there are jumper cables connecting the nodes, right? Each one of these little balls right here represents a node, right? There is the node of lust or love and wrath, the node of lust and chastity. If you can bring the balance into the nodes and then connect them to each other in a way that is conductive, right? And so, what I do in my manifestation efforts is I take the source at the top and the bottom, and I connect that with direction in the second and the seventh step, or the sixth step, right? We begin with hope and despair. We begin with love and wrath. Finding that balance, bringing those together through the balance point. Then I connect them to the next step, which is lust and chastity, sloth and diligence, right? You're going through the checks as you go, but it is as though you are putting together wires. You are connecting this one to that one, then that one to the next one. I create a trinity out of the top three and a trinity out of the bottom three, and then I connect this trinity from the sacral to the heart, and I connect this trinity from the third eye to the heart, right? These are connection points in the nodes. Using them in this way has proven to be effective for me. It is directing the energy. That is what the third eye in the sacral does. It decides direction. It points out which way to go. The throat and the solar plexus amplify that. The crown and the base are reception points for raw energy. Kind of like being on the circuit, having a capacitor, and then a switch, right? You are increasing the load, and then you point it in the direction that you want. You connect the circuit, and you make the manifestation happen by pushing it out into the aura, right? I set it about halfway between where the aura begins, right? It flows in both directions, so it doesn't appear like it begins right there, but it does, right? It encapsulates all the space from the center all the way to you, but it extends from you out as well. What I do in those manifestation efforts is I connect the jumper cables, and then I push the energy into the envelope that is the aura about halfway. And then I pull energy from the aura towards that point. That creates 4 points, right? That's where I'm getting with this, right? And diligem on attend, if thou lust to thrive, thus make thou projections 3, 4, or 5. In my way, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That doesn't mean that there's not another way where it is just 3. That doesn't mean that there's not another way where it's 7 or 8. The way that I do it is 4 steps. Like down, up, together and out, into the point. That is the manifestation process that has allowed me to heal myself and to bring abundance into my life. By this misty talking, I mean nothing else but that thou must cast first the less on the more, increasing ever the number as wise men that tells, and keep thou thy secret to thyself in store. Be covetous of cunning, it is no burden sore. For who that joineth not the elixirs with body made clean, he wot not what sickerly projection doth mean. That's an interesting way of spelling sickerly, right? We talked about the psyche. This is that, right? What cyclically projection doth mean. Again, this is in accordance with what I'm talking about, right? We just talked about the numbers. I mean, there are numbers attached to the entirety of the stack. There are numbers attached to the connections that are made. Some of those are arbitrary, some of them are not. But the important part here, right? You must cast the first, the less on the more, right? That is bringing balance. Increasing ever the number as wise men that tells, and keep thou thy secrets to thyself in store. Be covetous of cunning. Maybe you want to learn something. But who that joineth the elixirs with bodies made clean, he wot not what sickerly projection doth mean. Make sure that you are doing the work, right? The shadow work, the cleansing work must be done. 10 if thou multiply first into 10, 100th that number will make sickerly. If 100th into 100 be multiplied then, 10,000 is that number, counteth he wittingly. Then into as much more 10,000 multiply, that is 1,000,000, which multiplieth I wise, into as much more as 100 millions is. That 100 millions being multiplied likewise into 10,000 millions, that is for to say, maketh so great a number, I wot not what it is. Thy number in projection thus multiply always. Now, child of thy courtesy, for me thou pray, saith that I had told thee our secrets all in sum, to which I beseech God by grace thou may come. Now thou hast conquered the 12 gates, and all the castle thou holdeth at will. Keep thy secrets in store unto thyself, and the commandments of God look thou fulfill. In fire continue thy glass still, and multiply thy medicines, more and more. For wise man done say, store is no sore. The end of the 12 gates. And that is going to bring us to the end of today's study. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult series of topics. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I do have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something that I apologize for. This process, right, I believe, right, and I could be wrong, I am willing to be corrected, but to me this entire thing has been a rather convoluted way of saying the things that I have described in this book. Now, obviously there is confirmation bias. I have a book. I am trying to sell it. The second edition is out. The cover is going to take a little while because apparently you got to pay extra for that, and I didn't know that. And so I made my edit without changing my cover, and now I got to wait a couple of months. But you can pick up the new book, right? The almost doubled in size, containing a lot more information. The first edition would get you there. The second edition will get you there a little bit more efficiently. And so all of this stuff I feel like I've already described. I've already talked about in some great detail. In addition to that, I do have another book coming out. It is The Green Heart, Completing the Mysterium Conjunctionis, dealing entirely with alchemy, which will be talking about this in somewhat greater detail. And so I really don't have a whole lot to add right here. We talked about the salient points as we went along. For me, these 12 gates, they all make sense. I don't think there was a single one I was just like, what? Like every one of them may not have been how I would have said it. Right? My understanding and their understanding are not exactly the same understanding, but it's close enough to count. It's close enough for me to understand they at least knew what they were talking about. Right? The way that I've done it and the way that you do it may not be the same way. That is fine, right? I'm not claiming that I have the only way. What I do claim is that I have found a way. I have found a path that does lead to fulfillment. It does lead to achievement. It leads to healing. It leads to peace and serenity. For the most part, right? The life still happens. You're still existent in the world. There will still be problems, even if you have achieved this. Even if you are manifesting actively in your life, there will still be points of balance that you need to bring. There will still be temptations that arise in your life that you need to overcome. Sometimes those temptations are to give in to the vices a little bit. That is something that many of the control systems just simply cannot wrap their mind around. There is a time to have things. There is a time to have sex. There is a time to be angry. There is a time for slothfulness. There is a time to use your vices. There is a time to use your virtues. And there is a time to not use those. Finding that balance is different for every single person. So we can't expect one path to lead to the same place. Right? But I'm on this path holding up a light, just as loud and light and bright as I can. Here's where I'm walking. You are more than welcome to join me. If this path is not exactly for you, there might be one right here next to me on the left or the right. That's not up to me either. Right? It may be that you completely disregard the entire half of this. Many people do. The Kundalini experience, that only deals with half of the power. It deals with none of the balance. I wonder why there are so many negative effects from dealing with that. It's not that it doesn't work. It's not that it's not existent. It's just not effective. There are parts that I feel are missing. But you might be able to get there with that. Right? Your understanding, my understanding don't have to be the same understanding. But there are things that are absolutely necessary to do any of it. And I feel like we have talked about that enough. And so, if you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment. Whether you agree or disagree with anything that was stated, put it in the box down below. And if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you really like what I'm doing, hit me with a membership. Or hit me with a super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of the book, or even reaching out directly to me through any of the links provided down below. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pittstake. Peace.